Well, Jack, following Game 5's victory, you and I had a discussion right here on this beach saying that we'll have this view once again. It's Sunday, one day away from the two best words in sports, Game 7, as this is the panel presented by Sportsnet. Pleased to be joined by a pair of voices of your Edmonton Oilers. And before we break down game number 7 and preview it, what's it like being known as the most handsome guy in the traveling group, according to Leon Draisaitl, Bob?
I think some standards have been dropping a little bit here. So, anyways, let's get to it. We got a game to talk about.
We do have a game to talk about, and of course, Connor McDavid in games 5 and 4 put this team and city on his back. But what cannot be slighted is the depth contribution, specifically from that third line with Matthias Janmark, Connor Brown, and Adam Henrique. Jack.
Well, I think that was the line that breathed life into the Edmonton Oilers in both games 4 and 5. I know McDavid had 8 points, but that line triggered the onslaught. Janmark had a goal and an assist in the first 8 minutes of game 4. And you know what? Adam Henrique and Connor Brown, they're doing things the way they've done them in the last month or two of the season, meaning getting inside the dots, hard to the blue paint. And Adam Henrique, he scored a beautiful goal the other night, but it was one of those things where he's a guy that I think can score from 6 feet in and still has the skill and polish to finish off the rush. What all three of these players have done have come through in the clutch when their club has needed it. Certainly Connor Brown's shorthanded goal here in Game 5 was mammoth. Again, triggering the kind of night Connor McDavid had. So finally, what McDavid has around him is a team that's able to support the magnificent individual talents that he and Leon always have been. What Edmonton has always been in search of is a team to put around those two players, and I think the third line has embodied that, even their rise within the playoffs. Lest we forget, Connor Brown was a healthy scratch, and Adam Henrique was out of the lineup with an injury earlier in these playoffs. Those three have solidified, and in my mind, given Edmonton an advantage in an area where most people felt Dallas and Florida would enjoy that advantage, and that's depth.
And when it comes to Adam Henrique, he became just the 4th player in Oilers franchise history to record multiple game-winning goals in one Stanley Cup Final. And also, we should highlight Warren Foegele. Of course, walking into the building in Game 4, he wore the Mamba mentality shirt. Since throwing on that T-shirt, Bob, he has 4 points, is +5. In 14 minutes per game, he's been extremely efficient.
And I agree with Jack. I mean, I think what we've seen this year is the Oilers, there can't be any debate now. They are a team. I mean, they went on a 24-3 run earlier this season. They added a couple players since then. And if you don't accomplish what they've accomplished this year, just being a 2-horse pony up front with a good power play. And there's been some emergence of some other players. And Warren Foegele was critical for Chris Knoblauch's success. He was the OHL playoff MVP back in 2017. So he has elevated before in the playoffs. He had a really good playoff one year for Carolina as well. And he's been critical here in this Stanley Cup Finals and helped both guys that he's ended up playing with, both when he was up with Connor McDavid and when he was playing the other night with Leon Draisaitl. Dylan Holloway as well and Philip Broberg have helped provide some secondary support. Broberg's +8 in the 9 games that he's played. And everybody talked about Dallas's depth in goaltending. Well, the Oilers, as it turned out, had more depth than Dallas, and Stu Skinner had a better save percentage. And then you look at this series, everybody talked about Florida's depth in goaltending. Well, to this point in the series, we're tied 3-3, but the Oilers support guys have outscored Florida's support guys, and now Stu Skinner has a better save percentage than a guy who's won 2 Vezina trophies and is up for a third. There's more to the Edmonton Oilers than just a couple of players.
All right, Jack, let's expand on Stu Skinner, because in games 4 to 7 so far in these 2024 playoffs, Stu Skinner is a perfect 10-0. He has a 1.50 goals against average and a .940 save percentage. What does the elevation of his play in the most critical times of the year signify to you?
Well, I think it matches the elevation in your voice, first of all. But secondly, I'd say this. Stu Skinner has, from day one, from when I first met him, he's retained a certain presence about him that leads you to think he's going to be a solid NHL goalie. He is Kurt Russell in Tombstone 30 years ago. And again, for some of our viewers, they're going to be like, oh, I just lost him. But look it up on Google. He's got the wavy mustache. He's got a preternatural sense of cool and calm about him that, no matter what happens, he's going to find a way. He's going to find a way to get back in the series, as was the case against Vancouver, and he's going to find a way to go head-to-head against some of the league's best goaltenders. And as a result, if you look at the goaltending overall in the playoffs now, Sergei Bobrovsky and Stu Skinner have eerily similar numbers when you take a look at the 20-some-odd games that they've played in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So there is no advantage. I don't think there's any home ice advantage. There might be a psychological edge. I mean, Edmonton's won 3 in a row and Florida's lost 3 in a row. I don't think you can entirely wipe the slate clean. But I think all the perceived advantages that Edmonton's opponents have had have gently fallen by the wayside. And just when the Oilers needed their depth to show up, it showed up. And Stuart Skinner's performance in the second half of these playoff series indicates the same thing. Just when you need it to show up, he shows up. And the same can be said with their special teams. Bob has made a point of outlining the fact that Edmonton's shorthanded unit has outscored Florida's power play unit. Well, for the playoffs as a whole, they're plus 21. That ties the league record. There's a reason Edmonton's in this position. It's not a fluke. Special teams, goaltending, 5-on-5 play, depth, Edmonton's got it. And I think they've proven they're a worthy Stanley Cup finalist, and now they're 60 minutes away from putting the finishing touches on one of the most memorable seasons in the history of this franchise. And when you're talking about the Oilers franchise, that's saying something.
Bob, in the final practice day for the Edmonton Oilers this season, Stuart Skinner used the word opportunity. Can you maybe describe the opportunity that lies ahead for this group in game number 7?
Well, it is for the entire team. People sit there and say, you've got the world's best player. That was part of the discussion point with a lot of the media today, as Edmonton had Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl speak to the media horde that was there today. But the reality of the situation is they got there being by a team, and the way they're going to win is as a team collectively together. They have a chance to do something really special. I get the sense that they're relatively chill, much like their head coach. I'll be very intrigued to see how Florida starts their game tomorrow, because what we've seen here is the Oilers, for the most part, with the exception of Game 2, have started on time in all games. So, and I'm with Jack. Like there's something to do, something truly incredible in a year that I don't even know. You went to Hollywood and scripted a 2-9-1 start, and a coach taking over when the team was 31st overall, or a team at 5-12-1, or a team down 2-1 and 3-2 to Vancouver and down 2-1 to Dallas and 2-0 in Game 4. Every step of the way, the Oilers have defied a certain amount of logic, and certainly some of the experts, but as guys that travel around the team on a day-to-day basis, even though we're not in the dressing room, I think we sense that there was a confidence level of what they might be able to accomplish, and they have that opportunity tomorrow.
Their last victory was Edmonton's first, when Connor McDavid had neither a shot on goal or a point. I mean, that tells you that Edmonton has reached the point where they are a complete team, and as a result, in my mind, the biggest game in the history of the Stanley Cup Final will be played tomorrow, and Edmonton's in it. And that's all you could ask for at any point, not only this season, but the last 5 years.
And all of this, well, it leads to the two best words in sports, Game 7.